But now, when the real battle came, he wouldn't make those choices. He wouldn't make the same mistake twice. The book's pages began to flip backwards, towards the beginning. And he realized that his adventure was just beginning. The clouds parted over the Isles of Boreas. It was time to choose. The rebellion was in trouble. Ravens were scouting for the secret rebel base. They needed a game changer. Pieces of the Sky Ripper had surfaced. Or so a scholar in the mountains had told him. Surely the weapon that banished the lost gods could defeat the Emperor. Also, a temple had risen out of empty desert. The Emperor had brought the Sky Ripper pieces up out of ancient burial by his obscene rituals. Could this be where the Iblis stone was hidden? Someone better get it before he does, thought Renato. And also, his old friend Lapino needed rescuing.
Oh non, lui c'est mort.
Of course. Renato had a pretty strong suspicion that Lapino had betrayed the rebellion.
Fait genre.
But could Renato really leave an old friend to the Ravens?
Ah, on l'a déjà fait, c'est ça?
Ouais.
Ah, ok. Après, il y a le temple qui est apparu. C'est ça?
Every child knew about the Sky Ripper. The Transcendent Emperor had buried its pieces. What could have brought them to light? This Emperor, Isengrim III, had once been kind, but he'd gone mad. And now he was conducting secret, obscene rituals to bring back the lost gods. Had he, somehow, summoned the long-lost components of the legendary weapon out of the deep places of the earth? It was more than Renato could fathom. But if he could find a legendary weapon, he would use it. As he set foot on the island, Renato couldn't help feeling a bit curious. Was Lapino still waiting to be rescued? No. He was probably drinking champagne with the ravens. Did ravens drink champagne? Did rabbits? Renato felt oddly thirsty, come to think of it. Why had he chosen the Sky Ripper? Renato never made plans that required constant vigilance. He was a hero. He didn't think too much. He just went with his gut and hoped it all worked out. The Sky Ripper was a long shot. He'd have to devote himself to it. No side journeys, no rescuing old friends. That was against his nature. Could he stick with it? I wonder what I could make with all these sword crafting materials, thought Renato.
Ça coûte cher. Ouais, laisse mettre.
What were these poles exactly? Parking meters from the time of the lost gods?
Ah, c'est marrant. Je crois que je peux.
Two eyes good. One eye dead. The people who had built this castle, did they even know what monstrous weapon lay hidden within their walls? The Sky Ripper could destroy anything it touched, or so the legend said. As the Transcendent Emperor had fought the Lost Gods, thousands of thousands had died. But Renato had been through wars. The only merciful war was a short one.
Come
in handy in a pinch.
Juste ça. Tu peux pas ouvrir ce truc de glace, hein.
There was a cat in this one, and something useful.
Quoi? Extraterrestre? Non. L'empereur transcendant.
If only he had some way to break the ice, or convince it he was a friend.
Say goodnight, Gracie, said Renato, wondering who Gracie was.
Est-ce qu'il va se tourner vers nous? Il va venir vers toi là. En vrai, le ciel. Je suis tranquille. Rien. Je peux monter là, non? Il n'y a rien. D'accord.
Was that your shield?
A puzzle. Renato loved puzzles. Except when he couldn't figure them out. On the other hand, if there was a puzzle, it was probably meant to keep people away from something good.
Pourquoi tu tournais là?
You know nothing, Jon Snow.
Oh, une gemme! Transcrate. Mais où il y en a qui a chance?
That had been his mistake before. Trusting his old friend Lapino, who'd been through so many battles with him and shared so many heartaches, who he'd rescued so
Yes.
many times. What was up with that guy anyway?
Il débloque le temps.
There it was. Skyripper's armature. The stuff that dreams are made of. Engineers' dreams, anyway. The device was intricate. No one alive had the skill to make a thing like it. How was it part of a weapon at all? He'd have to ask a scientist. But first, he'd get the second piece. Skyripper had a heart. A core that had come to rest on the next island. Well, there was another island he could reach. Zenobia had just invaded it with her father's Raven battalions. She must be encamped there still. But fighting Zenobia now, that made no sense at all. He'd already sacrificed one friend to get this armature, was it? He didn't need to hurry to face her. She would find him.
On va continuer sur...
It was a no-brainer. He'd sacrificed his old friend Lapino to get the armature. And the armature was useless by itself, only a series of coils and wheels. War demanded sacrifices, and he would make more before the end. He would have to choose the greatest good no matter how much it cost him. Zenobia. Well, he would see her sooner or later, across a battlefield or a sword's point before all this was over. He was sure of that. The power was in the core. Obviously, he had to get the core. Doubt sunk in before he was even out of sight of the Farfarer. Why had he chosen the Skyripper? It was the sort of path he'd always avoided,
The path of responsibility, of seriousness. Had he grown up? He didn't feel grown up.
Moi, je regarde sur une
He'd made this decision from his gut, like he always did. Somehow, he'd impulsively decided to stop being impulsive. Did that make any sense?
It was time to make a new sword.
Je sais pas, mais il faut que je choisisse un chemin, donc en tout cas...
There was something sour in the air. Like the earth had ruptured over something that had been fermenting for a very long time.
And this is why heroes are called dashing, Renato thought. See? Dashing? Get it?
There were fewer and fewer trees. There were only these huge crystalline growths. Had those been here before? He no longer heard birds except for the feverish cawing of the ravens when they attacked. He couldn't smell the small animals of the forest, the mice and rabbits. Where had they gone? And he was getting hungry too. This was an unhealthy place to be.
Mon perso, il fait n'importe quoi, là. Avoir de la vie, c'est mieux.
The 20-sided core made him feel physically sick. Once he had sneaked into a temple of the dark arts, and he hadn't liked what he smelt and saw there. This felt like that. As quick as he could, he wrangled the icosahedron into the armature. The wheels began to spin, then glow. The sick feeling quickly spun away. Now he only felt sad. He had lost good friends for this war apparatus.
Maybe Lapino wasn't such a good friend. Yeah, that made him feel better. He carried his prize back to the Farfarer. Now, he had to make his next move.
There was a key Imperial outpost on the Nexus. If this really was some sort of super weapon, he could use it to wreak havoc on the enemy. And if it wasn't, well, better to know that before the final battle. But maybe he should show it to some scientists first. There was an observatory on the Nexus. Maybe he should go there before he fired it.
Moi je dis, je vais faire expertiser. Non. Parce que je sens que va se la faire chouramer. Ouais.
Renato had never been much of a student. At Swordfu school, he'd never read the books, just looked at the pictures. And Zenobia. But weapons he understood. His gut told him that the Sky Ripper would work great. He would use it to take out the Imperial outpost. And what's the worst that could happen? The thing wouldn't work, and then he'd take it to the scientists. Right? Exactly.
C'est quoi le mais dans tout ça?
As he set out down the path, Renato wondered why the parts of the Sky Ripper had only surfaced now, thousands of years after the Transcendent Emperor had discarded it. This Emperor, Isengrim III, had performed terrible, bloodthirsty rituals to invoke the lost gods. Perhaps that was bringing up lost artifacts. How perfect, then, that the Sky Ripper would reappear to be his destruction.
Take a leap of faith, said the inscription.
It's not personal, but your mother wears army boots. On her ears. Smashing things was fun. He was tired of slaughtering ravens. Maybe it was time to test out the new weapon. He turned a knob on the Sky Ripper. It made strange mechanical noises. The wheels spun faster. It began to hum.
The Sky Ripper was following his every step. At least it acknowledged him as the master. But there was no trigger. How was he supposed to fire it? Fire, he said. Nothing happened. Well, maybe it just needed to warm up. After all, it hadn't been fired in thousands of years. The Sky Ripper had been built by the Transcendent Emperor. To figure it out, he just had to think like a legendary demigod. That actually wasn't as helpful as it sounded.
Hey! Hey, a workbench!
He could try out his new blade.
Ah, je peux en faire une. Je peux faire celle de glace. C'est horrible, c'est des chemicals, on peut toucher au lancer.
The Sky Ripper was making a whining noise now, and its wheels were spinning so fast he could no longer see them.
Renato had a thought. Please? He asked. The Sky Ripper began to glow. Boom! The outpost burst into flame.
Ravens flapped out screaming, wings on fire. The base was his. The far speaker toad came hopping out.
Renato!
It croaked, sounding like a toad version of Zenobia.
Don't use the Sky Ripper. It will destroy the world.
Yeah, sure it will, cracked Renato. Pull the other one.
If you don't trust me, go see Calaveras.
That sounded sensible. Why did she always have to sound sensible all the time? Oh, it was infuriating.
Of course she would say that. He was supposed to hurry and bring the Sky Ripper to the council so the rebels could actually win the war. But what if she was right?
Damn it.
Bon, on fait tout péter.
Just this once, he would not let Zenobia get into his head with her logic and her wisdom and her appeals to reason. He was a fox. He'd go with his instincts, and it would all work out like it always did. Oh, he was sounding like a reckless idiot, even to himself. But if there was one thing Renato could never bring himself to do, it was turn back on a decision he'd made.
Tu veux pas voir la suite? Bon, on s'arrête là, là. Non, vas-y, on finit de tout péter et puis...
Imperials were flapping and cawing all around the ruins. They must be panicking with rumors flying of the superweapon. Maybe they hoped to find and destroy the base before he could put the Sky Ripper into action. The Sky Ripper was whining and heating up. It would be time to use that energy soon.
Allez. Hein? Allez, combat, hop. 3 sur 3.
Nice. That could be useful.
Ouais. Parce que la pince, ça t'amène en dessous, j'ai l'impression.
Once, he'd found a Superman issue #1 in mint condition in a jar he'd broken. He planned to keep breaking things until he had the whole series.
Ah bah... Ah bah voilà. Tu dis rien là-dedans et là dès qu'il y a un truc, c'est bon, ça tombe dans le vent.
He had all the ingredients for a pretty nifty sword.
What? Ah, c'est le...
Non, ça n'a pas assez. D'accord.
Renato wondered if his future self had commissioned these poles.
Non, tu vas te... Grave.
What did you do if one of these platforms stalled?
Super. C'est rassurant ce qu'il me dit.
Ça revient... Ouh, vitesse de tête.
Thought, Renato?
Bah voilà.
What was Zenobia talking about? This was a fantastic weapon. Ravens burst into flames with just a touch of its killer beam. He was tempted to leave it on all the time, but he didn't want to accidentally slice off some council toad's head or tongue. She'd been trying to distract him. Well, this time, no one was going to distract him. Huh? A lever? That was new. Most people still use doorknobs.
C'est quoi ce livre qu'on voit là?
C'est ça, vraiment. Attends, je me dois de ce truc-là parce que...
Renato hated gogglers, but it freaked him out to cut them.
Je m'étonne qu'il déteste les affaires, mais maintenant...
Long stairs. So he was close to the rebel base. Nothing was on fire. So far, so good.
That was awesome!
Oh merde, j'ai pas vu que c'était un mec qui explosait. c'est mon match qui tire en fait.
Bernardo danced around the room yelling,
Oh yeah, that's how we do it.
it was something he liked to do, but only after he'd killed all the witnesses.
Bernardo felt a little better.
Établi, il est pas là. Il est loin derrière, je crois. Ouais.
As he headed towards the council chamber, Bernardo felt everyone watching him.
You've saved the rebellion, said the council speaker. Frankly, we were afraid you'd turn aside to see that idiot Lapino.
Not bloody likely, Bernardo told them, feeling he was maybe being a bit harsh on the poor mad rabbit.
If you never make sacrifices, he said, you're probably not doing the right thing. The speaker nodded.
Are you ready to lead the charge?
Let's roll, he said, with grim satisfaction. Bernardo set sail for the fleet. The Sky Ripper had lost its wine. It was humming now, as if it had taken some time to seat properly. He had always been irresponsible. This time, he'd done the right thing, made the hard decisions. He was a real hero. He hadn't let himself be distracted by old friends or old lovers turned enemies. Finally, he could be proud of himself.
Comment tu bois? On dirait, tu sais, les crapauds.
He was
là.
ready. So was Sky Ripper. The Sky Ripper had a will of its own. It picked out its own targets and set them on fire.
This was going to be a short battle. He would set the ships on fire if he didn't need them to get to the Emperor. And he wondered if he'd see Zenobia, or if she'd flee. Wouldn't she be proud of him? At least, a bit of respect. He'd become an all-conquering hero.
C'est beaucoup, là. Ah, c'est bon. Mais what the fuck, quoi? Elle fait quoi, mon épée? Gèle aussi, gèle les ennemis à proximité. C'est qui gèle.
The portal was heavily guarded. Let's go someplace they really didn't want it to go.
Ah merde! C'est une saloperie qui a explosé. Il n'y a rien du tout. Est-ce qu'il y a ce machin là?
That ought to be enough for a proper sword, he thought.
Ah non, justement, non, ça suffit pas. Ouh là là.
This is quite the view, he thought.
J'avais Destinies.
It was like having the world's deadliest bowman right by his side.
Mon perso n'a pas beaucoup bougé en fait. J'ai dash, hein. Il a pas beaucoup eu dash. Qu'est-ce qui s'est passé?
Renato wondered idly if people who had built these poles had really, really long tentacles.
Pourquoi des fois il veut pas? Ah, j'ai pas assez de... On est presque. Je pense.
Power, precision, ferocity. The device was wonderful. Buy it a drink.
There was a parchment on a signpost. It was from her.
Every time you fire, you risk the destruction of the universe. That's insane. We surrender. A trick? Maybe she really believed it. He could hear horns blaring the retreat. Maybe it was true. Maybe they had one.
There had to be something useful in these things, didn't there?
Was the craziest weapon he'd ever used. Or not used.
Pardon. Ça fait du bien. trucs à nous, les enchanteurs pour améliorer et soigner les ennemis.
And there was Zenobia, wearing the white robes of surrender. She came and kneeled before him. Why didn't you listen to me? I was trying to save you too. You're the enemy, he said. I was never your enemy, Renato. Then she spoke a terrible word and made a gesture with her hand. She stopped moving, covered in frost, and he wondered why she'd frozen herself. Then the Sky Ripper froze, and then, for a moment, he felt very cold and discovered that he couldn't move. The next thing he knew, the sun was a giant, monstrously red. It took up half the sky, and he was in a parched red desert. And then he was on fire.
Renato stared at the book. He was still alive. Again. And still only flying away from burning Ubar. Had he lived that adventure? Or only dreamt it? Had he really died? It felt so real, not like a dream at all. And he'd lost again. Oh, he hated that. But he had made different choices. And he'd lost in a different way. It was the book, wasn't it? Oracles showed you your destiny. But this was showing him different ways he could die miserably. Thanks a bunch, book, he thought. But these were destinies that he did not have to fulfill. But he'd learned another true thing. Zenobia still had feelings for him.
Oui, t'es un traître et d'un coup, des sentiments.